In today's
Okay.
video, we have a very special guest, Ali, but if you've ever been on my community Discord, you may know him as Torin Chief. Would you like to say hello, Torin Chief?
Hi. Um, hope you're doing a great. Hope you're having a great day, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so the reason I brought you on is because lately I've been noticing in my community Discord, you've been recommending a very specific team to a lot of people, and everyone who follows your advice and builds that team ends up with like a 2-key Ultra Nightmare. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yes. Yes. Two key. Sometimes one key depends on what champions they
Right,
use.
champions, gear, all that stuff matters, and great halls.
Yes.
So it depends. So what I've done is, funnily enough, several months ago, I wanted to try to build an all rare Ultra Nightmare team using 2 Seducers, and it didn't quite work out because I was doing a 1-1 team. So I just kind of set them aside and said, you know what, maybe one day I'll be able to dust these guys off and use them for something. And then seeing you recommend this team over and over to people, I was like, man, we really need to do a guide on this, because I think this style of team is something that could help a lot of people. But what would be the most
Yes.
entry level, accessible way to do this? And I'm like, you know what? Let's build it with as many rares as possible. So that's what I did, using
Yep.
your recommendations. Uh, so basically, it's just Batman Forever from Deadwood Jedi, but instead of um, block damage on a 4-turn cooldown, we're using Ally Protect on a 4-turn cooldown.
Yep.
So,
That's very accurate.
and I will link to the Batman Forever team in the description of this video. Alright, so now let's go over the manual setup for this. Alright, so first we're going to open with Seducer's Ally Protect, an A1 from Seeker. Then Tempest can do whatever she wants. Her extra turns don't actually affect the speed tune, so just do whatever. We're going to A1 with the second Seducer. Do the A2 to put decreased attack from Feign. Claim boss attacks. And then we do another A1 from Seducer. Now we do the A2 followed by the A1 with Seeker. Then again, Temptress kind of just does whatever. We do Ally Protect with the Seducer, and then now we have to put block debuffs to stay affinity friendly from the fast Seducer here. A1 from Seeker. A1 from Temptress. Now we do A1 from Seducer, and we can hit auto. And the next time the slow Seducer goes, he's going to place block debuffs to block the stun, and then the fast Seducer will do Ally Protect and put block damage on himself. And away we go.
Okay. So for the team, I wanted to first talk about the basics of what you need for the team. The original team was the Batman Forever team that is on Deadwood Jedi. It's with either block damage champions or unkillable champions that have a 4-turn cooldown. It's very important to be a 4-turn, not a 3-turn, not a 5-turn. Champions that would work for that team would be Helicath, Roshguard, Sir Nick, and Warcaster can work in the fast position of the block damage champion, or in this case, the fast Seducer. And for the basics, so you need 2 champions with a 4-turn ally protection skill, or block damage, or unkillable. And the champions that I think would work for that would be maybe Tyrant, Paragi, Jareg, and Rearguard is the last option in case you need decreased defense and decreased attack on one champion. But the decreased attack on Rearguard isn't very ideal because it's not 100%.
Correct. And I do want to say
And as for
it's important to
DPS,
note, if they are using a champion who has a Ally Protect skill on a default 3-turn cooldown when fully booked, it's important that they don't fully book it. It needs to stay on a
yes,
Sorry to
that's
interrupt.
true.
Keep going. I just wanted to make sure.
No, that's what I had in mind too. So for the DPS, I would recommend Draco, Fushan, and I'm already running Fushan in my own team because of the speed aura. it will decrease the speed requirements by a lot. Fane and Razen, and another champion that I really love, Ragnar, the Void Epic. He gives you decreased defense, um, decreased defense, weaken, and leech, which are pretty good for doing damage and surviving. Geo and Corvus. Corvus is good because of the 25% damage reduction. It's like having an extra strengthen. And Geo, I mean, it's Geo.
Yeah.
Does a lot of damage, gives you protection, weaken, you name it. And also steals the increased attack on the boss,
That's pretty
which
important.
can be quite annoying.
Yeah.
Yes. Also, normally this team would not work on affinities unless you have a cleanser like Doom Priest. But in this case, because you have Seducers, they have a 4-turn like debuff skill that they use. So it's completely affinity friendly. But in case you're not using someone else as your ally protection, you're gonna need a Doom Priest to cleanse. Or you can use Brogni, the A2 for cleansing and the A3 for covering the stun.
Yeah.
And there's another champion you can use, Riho Bone Spear. She cleanses and does a lot of debuffs and gives you block debuffs skill 2. Also, if you're using Riho or someone that cleanses and does block debuffs on a 3-turn cooldown, it's important that the cleanser has to have it on 3-turn, not 4-turn. And if you're using any of those champions for cleanse instead of Doom Priest, you're gonna need someone like Corvus that extends the buffs so that you can get some coverage for the stun as well.
I think there might be a way.
However,
Go ahead.
I haven't been able to figure it out. Like I've been working a lot on it, but I haven't been able to figure it out to be able to cleanse and have the block debuffs to stay on you. One of the champions that is very good, as I said, Riho, she can take the stun and like give you block debuffs and all that at the same time. So she's stun friendly. If you're using Riho, you can put the block debuffs. Yeah, you can put up the block debuffs, and it's just gonna cover for the decreased speed of spirit. And she doesn't get stunned because of her passive. She just reflects it back to the boss. And yeah, she can be a great stun target. And she provides a lot of other stuff.
So super OP Void Legendaries aside, Doom Priest is probably the most accessible option for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Doom Priest would be what you need for any other affinity, like other than Void. Like any affinity other than Void, you can use Doom Priest, and it's definitely affinity friendly. For Ultra Nightmare, Nightmare, and Brutal, even Hard is just a little bit funky.
So if you had to build the optimal 5-man Batman Forever ally protection team, what would be your optimal 5-man dream team for this setup?
My optimal team would be, I think, Jarek for decreased attack, a lot of healing, and ally protection and increased defense. Mm-hmm. And the other ally protection would be either Tyrant or maybe rear guard, depends on who champions I have. But like if you're moving that aside, like you're imagining like I have everything.
Yeah, assuming you had
it would be Jarek. It would be Jarek, it would be Tyrant. Because they both give you increased defense and ally protection. Tyrant gives you some damage reduction because of his passive, like it's 10%. Okay. And Jarek gives you a lot of healing, decreased attack. What were you saying?
Nothing. I was just agreeing with you. But it's also important to note if you're using Tyrant, you would not fully book his ally protection. You would keep it on a 4-turn cooldown.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be on the 4th turn. You just have to look at it and be sure it's on the 4th turn. And for the DPS, I would go. Maybe Drake. No, not Draco. Maybe either Corvus and Riho. So it would be completely friendly to affinity friendly, and I think they would do great amount of damage, and I would have a lot of healing. I think that would be the optimal team for me.
So I really,
Of course, you can't change Seeker.
oh right, of course, naturally. Just to show everybody, like, the gear I'm using is good, but it's not the best gear on my account for the most part. I did want to put. Okay, I'll start with the fast seducer. I did have to steal my arbiter's chest piece, which is a flat HP chest piece, and my arbiter's shield. And the reason I had to do this is because I wanted to get his crit rate as high as I could, which unfortunately for this seducer is only 50%. But I wanted him in regen because the only form of healing we have on this team is the leech from Tempest. And because of the 4 turns he takes every cycle, 2 of them he's not actually attacking and therefore cannot heal from the leech. So I found I get more damage in, my keys are more consistent if I'm not relying on that War Master proc on the leech if I have him healing through regen. So it was very hard for me to get what's the speed? 267 speed in regen with the right HP defense and as much crit rate as I could. I don't keep a lot of high damage regen gear because you're generally not building damage dealers in regen. So it was a difficult build, but I stole some gear from my arbiter and I managed to pull it off. But for total stats, we have 52,000 HP and 31,000, or sorry, not 31, 3,100 defense.
3,100.
Yes, I added an extra 0 to flex. And the most important stat though is the 267 speed. That's what he needs for the speed build somewhere in that range. You could always check deadwoodjedi.com with the speed tune there to get the exact speeds that you need when you put in your champion. All right, now for the second seducer, again he is in regen.
Do you want to recommend any other sets too for like seducers? Maybe like recommend Guardian too.
Yeah, oh yeah, if you can, my guardian gear is not that great because I got an unkillable team. Demetha was the first void epic I pulled on my account. So because I had an unkillable team for so long, I never really had a lot of need to farm guardian gear. So I don't have a lot. I have whatever I got for killing the boss the first time that rotation. So, and I haven't been keeping a lot of it because I haven't really needed it. I only recently built my new, not unkillable team just out of boredom. I wanted to try something new, so I've only have a very small amount of guardian gear on my account. But if you have access to good guardian gear and you can pull off these builds in guardian, that is another good option, especially if you're using seducer because temptress is really squishy.
Yeah.
And
But one thing, if you're using any other ally protection champion that doesn't have like block damage on them, like Seducer, or it doesn't have unkillable like Skull Crusher, or that legendary from what's that Shadowkin that gives herself damage. Kayuku, yeah, or like Kayuku. Kayuku has to be on a 5-turn cooldown because she takes an extra turn.
right.
So like if you're using any of those 3 champions that have some sort of protection on them, you can put them in Guardian gear to help your other champions stay alive. But if not, I would put them in either Stalwart or Defiant or something with like very high HP and very high defense to keep them alive. Because the Guardian would kind of kill them.
Yes, you don't want your ally protection
in some cases.
Damage they're already taking. And speaking of that,
Yeah.
made me realize I didn't really cover why Seducer. We covered it a little bit at the very beginning, but what I think makes Seducer so great is when he does his 50% ally protection for 2 turns, he's also placing block damage on himself for 1 turn. So you don't need to build stalwarts, which gives you a lot of freedom to try other sets. And as you mentioned, Guardian Gear is great because it's just an extra 10% mitigation for the rest of your team, and it's basically at no cost to him because he has block damage. And you get that little bit of heal too. And the other thing that he does on the same 4-turn cooldown is he does increased defense, the 30% version, as well as block debuffs for 2 turns. Like, this is an insane skill. Like, Seducer is such an underrated rare, and I think we're going to prove that when we show this 2-key Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss team.
I think if there was no need for Tempest to be there, this champion would be as good as a Lego.
You mentioned it while we were DMing each other last night, and you said he reminds you of Maneater.
Yes.
Because it's the
this team is kind of like a Maneater team.
Yeah, like the double Maneater. And then Temptress is like their Painkeeper.
Yeah, Temptress is their Painkeeper.
So, I mean, obviously ally protection isn't as good as Unkillable, but it's kind of the next best thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, basically, Seducer has really good base stats too for a rare. Like 1300 base defense is nuts for a rare. So he was definitely the easiest to build. I've got both of my Seducers with around 50,000 HP and around 3,000 or more defense. My second Seducer does have 100% crit rate because I only needed 240 speed. And that's another thing. Because we're using block debuffs instead of a cleanse, I was actually able to bring the speeds down a little bit, because if you're cleansing the decreased speed is on for 1 turn meter tick before Doompriest goes and cleanses it. So my team will never take that decreased speed debuff and be slowed down as a result, so I can actually bring their speeds down just a hair and still make the speed tune work. So the speeds that I'm using will work with the double Seducer team, but if you're relying on Doompriest to cleanse, check Deadwood Jedi and make sure it works in the calculator on Spirit.
They're gonna need a little bit more speed on the slower Seducer, or like the ally protection, and like the 2 other champions, Seeker and the other DPS that are close in the speed, because that might ruin your comp. So like they have to be a little bit faster together, and they have to have like I think your Seeker has to have a gap with the next person in line in the speed wise, because of the decreased speed, because it would just mess up their place, and it would just mess up the run.
When in doubt, check the calculator. It's an amazing tool, and if you put all the information in correctly, it won't steer you wrong. Period. Like, the people who made this knew what they were doing. So, all right. So my second Seducer does have 100% crit rate because he needed like 27 less speed. So I was able to get him to the right HP, defense, and speed, and still maintain 100% crit rate. Anytime you can get the right HP and defense and speed, after that, try to push damage. If you don't need accuracy, he can place decreased attack on his A2, but it's a small version, and in my opinion, it wasn't worth building accuracy into him to do that. So next, let's look at Temptress. Now, what she does, in addition to, first of all, when bringing her on the team is what allows Seducer to do the ally protection, which is why she has to be on the team. But what else she brings is a leech. And leech is the only form of healing I have on this team, aside from the 2 Seducers wearing regen. So if it wasn't for this leech, my Seeker and my Thane would not get any heals. So, also, you mentioned before, Geomancer can steal the increased attack off the clan boss. Temptress has a 40% chance of stealing that same increased attack with her A1. So a little bit extra utility there. Aside from, I really wish she brought like decreased attack or something. Like, this would be so good if she brought like the big version of decreased attack or decreased defense or something.
Or even poisons, like some sort of
she does look like
damage or protection.
She looks like she should be able to place poisons just by her aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
But leech is fine. It's still very helpful. It means you don't have to build your champions, and like you don't need to try to match sets to try to keep your champions alive. You can just build them in the gear you have, which is very important for Temptress and Fane specifically because they are so damn squishy. But my stats
Yeah.
for Temptress, she has 45,000 HP and 3,200 defense. Her speed is 243, and I've got her with 247 accuracy because she does need to land that leech. And that was the highest HP and defense I can get on her. So after I geared her, it would be pointless to gear everyone else on the team with more than that. Because if she's the squishiest and she dies, then the speed tune fails and the whole run falls apart. So
Yeah.
whoever the squishiest champion is on your team, building everyone else way less or way more tanky than that doesn't do you any good. So whoever the squishiest one is, that's kind of your benchmark for what stats you need to aim for the rest of your team. So after I built Temptress, I knew kind of where the threshold was for the minimum stats that I can get from my gear, and then I built Fane with as much HP and defense as I could. Now Fane's base stats are actually even lower than Temptress. Now my Fane has 50,000 HP and 2,800, well, almost 2,900 defense. But I was using the Hell Hades gear optimizer, and they have this setting that helps you calculate effective HP. And what that means is, it's kind of hard to explain and kind of abstract if you don't already know what it means. So you can have 100,000 HP and 0 defense, and you can get hit by a 100,000 damage attack and die because you only have 100,000 HP. But if you have 4,200 defense and 30,000 HP, that same 100,000 damage attack is only going to hit you for 20,000 damage, and you'll survive with 10,000 HP. So 4,000 defense and 30,000 HP gives you more effective HP than having 0 defense and 100,000 HP. Does that make sense? Did I explain that? I know that you understand it, but like...
Yeah, I think that was good.
Okay.
And did you mention the 4.2k defense threshold that they should aim for?
That's a good point. If you can try to get your champions to 4,200 defense, this is generally considered the defense hard cap because damage mitigation by defense scales on a linear curve with diminishing returns. So after a certain point, each additional point of defense yields less mitigation than the point before it. So once you get to a certain point on defense, you're better off building HP to gain more survivability. So for clan boss, once you get to 4,200 defense, you're mitigating 80% of the incoming damage. That's a lot, especially when, like, if the clan boss is trying to hit you for 4,000, it's gonna hit you for like 4,000. Like, I don't know,
40k.
Yeah, like
40.
math is not on the fly when I'm trying to think about other stuff. But yeah, so if you have 60% increased defense up for all the clan boss attacks, you can build your champions with, what is it, like 2,700 defense?
Yeah, 7 to 8.
Yeah, something in that range. So building your champion with like 2,700 defense and then increasing that defense number by 60% will push your total defense up to like the 4,200 defense range. Now, we don't have the big version on this team. We only have the small version from Seducer, the 30%. So we are gaining additional defense, but we're not defense capped. We're getting to like what people consider to be the soft cap, which is like 3,200, 3,500, somewhere in that range. But the champions we're working with are rares, aside from Fane and Seeker, but they're not particularly tanky champions, so we're kind of just doing the best that we can. So Fane's defense is a little bit lower than everybody else's, but she also has more HP than everybody else. So the Hell Hades gear optimizer tool has an effective HP calculator built into it. So I was telling the optimizer I wanted 3,000 defense and 40,000 HP on my Fane, and it kept kicking out these 2,500 defense builds with like 50k HP, etc., etc. I was like, why is it doing that? And then I looked at the top and it said calculating effective HP values or something like that. And I was like, oh, and that's when it hit me. Sometimes, so like, I wanted 3,000 defense and 40k HP, but it was giving me 28,000 with 50,000 HP. And that's effectively the same in terms of, yes, I'm mitigating less when I get hit, but I have a larger health pool to compensate for the fact I'm taking more damage. So there's like this ebb and flow to defense and HP, and it's kind of hard to get a handle on. But if you use the Hell Hades Gear Optimizer, they have a built-in tool to help you calculate that.
Yeah. They can add in the buffs, your aura, everything you have on the team to on the optimizer to help you build the team better.
And I haven't done a guide on that, but Hell Hades has tons and tons of guides that can help walk you through how to use his tool. And I would highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what Fane brings to this particular team is literally everything. She's I've got her 3-star awakened, so she's decreasing the clan boss's defense by an additional 10%. She brings decreased defense, she brings weaken, she brings decreased attack, and she brings poison. And she hits pretty hard. Even in this build, like, she's still the hardest hitting champion on my team, even though I've only got her with, she's under 4,000 attack and only 111% crit damage. But
yep,
she still hits pretty hard. It's not like insane because I've built her for survivability and not damage, but it still does a good amount. And then last we have Seeker. This is the champion who enables this particular speed tune. And I've got mine built in a toxic set. And again, I'm able to do the toxic set because I get heals from Tempest's leech. So she opens up the door for me to experiment with sets a little bit more. And if I could do this with a retaliation 2-piece set in addition, I would. I just don't have the retaliation gear on my account, unfortunately. But Seeker's total stats, we've got 47,000 HP and 2,966 defense, and his speed is 246 with 93% crit rate and 86% crit damage. So it's not a really high damage build, but I tried to get as much as I could while still achieving those very important defensive stats. So that's all I've got. Is there anything you want to add?
No, not much really. I think that was it. So we don't need anything else.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me and helping me. Should we shout out the Discord?
Sure.
You're probably more active on there than I am. In all honesty.
Which community Discord?
Ours.
Oh, you're just yeah.
Well, I call it ours because you were so helpful to me. You're like my number 2
No.
I honestly
Thank you.
could not run that Discord without your help. Like, I'll wake up in the morning and look at my phone and see that there's like 100 messages, and it's just you helping people. So I appreciate all your help.
Cool.
So if you are struggling, not just with Clan Boss, but any part of the game, you can join my community Discord. The link to that will be in the description below. And if you have questions about anything in the game, just post in the appropriate channels, and either myself, Torin Chief, or another member of the community will help you as soon as we're available. We have a great community, very friendly, very helpful, no judgment, just all good vibes and happy time.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Torin Chief, for joining me. Thank you for inspiring me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. And
it's always a pleasure to be in a chat.
Yes. Thank you. Not just for joining me in the video, but for all the help you do in the Discord. So, and I'm sure
you're welcome.
If you're watching this, Torin Chief has helped you in the Discord. Leave a comment below and show him some love. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Until next time,